that additional thrust to get the machine moving and through that fault zone without having thrust installed in the machine all the time. So just like high thrust, high torque is also a very valuable option when we come into these fault zones. What we're looking at here is high torque drives for the cutter head drive system. This is something we install pretty often on our crossover type machines, just by the nature of how the machines operate. Hard rock machines require a little bit less torque, but a higher cutter head speed in order to advance, whereas an ETV type machine will require lower cutter head speed, but much higher torque. And so in order to optimize power, these two-speed systems were developed. What's been seen on a lot of these crossover type of machines, even though they're still in rock mode, they hit fault zones. It's obviously some pretty difficult geology, and they're able to use these systems to successfully navigate through the fault zones throughout the project. So this is something that was installed, for instance, on a grading machine and has been used pretty heavily in all those fault zones in order to get through them. So water pressure, we saw a good example of difficult and high pressure conditions that are met. Something to touch on that Sindra mentioned is ground conditioning in front of the machine that ultimately is trying to reduce the pressure before the machine gets to it. There's multiple ways of doing that. Grouts, urethane grouts, primary among them. What we're looking at here is some forepoling, first on an open machine on your left-hand side and a shielded machine on your right-hand side. You can see that you have a lot better access to the ground on an open machine. Conversely, it's a lot more important for an open machine to use these tools in order to excavate. So what is the machine choice as you get in, if you're going into high cover with high water? Main beam machines have certainly successfully navigated high water inflows. It's something that they're able to do. But again, if it's a little bit more difficult, we can see on Gerede that grouting can be difficult in some geology. And so if you are expecting really high water inflows throughout the project, especially at high pressure, a shielded machine becomes a preferred option. There's been a fair amount of work in this area. What we're looking at here is a machine that's been developed like Gerede, but for another project in the U.S. This one for 30 bar pressure. There's a number of elements that go into this. This is a single shield machine like Gerede. Those are a little bit easier to seal up than a double shield machine, which has a long telescopic joint versus a shorter articulation joint that's seen in a single shield machine. You also have large grippers on a double shield machine that need to be sealed. So more challenges associated with a double shield machine. That being said, even this type of machine, you can see right here on it, it has grippers, it has stabilizers. All these different openings need to be protected against the pressure. So certainly a large job just beyond the main bearing and seal. The one area that I'm going to touch on in sealing is the conveyor opening. The grader machine had a screw conveyor. These have gates associated with them. A belt conveyor, this is the biggest opening on the machine. That's where the muck is flowing through. And that is probably the most important control point for the muck and being able to pressurize it. We have numerous options that are available to us to seal that depending on the job, the geometry of the machine. A couple examples here. The one on the left is a guillotine style. Usually this is good for controlling mass inflows like we saw in Gerede. Getting 100% seal in many cases is very difficult just because of the environment that it's in. Seals wear out, surfaces become worn, but it does protect you against these high inflows and water inflows that you're prone to see. A second example is where we retract a full bulkhead. So the machine that we were looking at previously has a belt conveyor where the full bulkhead comes back and seals up against the main pressure bulkhead, and then that pressure energizes the seal, so allowing a more watertight seal to be formed at higher pressures. does that leave us? What are our main takeaway points? Well, as Cinder noted, the geology can be very difficult to get on some of these projects, but the more information you have on the projects, the better you understand the project, the more you're able to really optimize the machine, put the correct features on the machine for the ground that you're going to address. I think Grady is a good example of the better the machine, the better the geology was understood, the better features and the more appropriate machine can be selected that can be used to ultimately finish the job. And with that, I think we...
Bánh chuối làm bánh phái khẩu có nhiều em học sinh mà cái lô chuối vào thì nó ngọt ngọt của chuối, mùi thơm, thơm mũi bánh chuối rất thơm.